fortunately as well, in later, well, very recent years, I've met Arnie at Gold's Gym in LA on Venice Beach, and that's just like so
Wow.
good. So I was just on a machine at Gold's and just looked to my left, and he's just on the machine like
Yeah.
next to me. Yeah, so it was like the best day ever, literally meeting Arnie. So I remember we went to a live show in Manchester. So it was me, Rob Vickerman, Danny Kerr, and Max Lewis all played at Leeds together. I went as The Undertaker.
Oh, really?
Danny went as John Cena. Rob went as Bret Hart, and Max went as Big Boss Man. So I've got full black trench coat for The Undertaker, right? I've got hat, wig on, black eye makeup, whole fucking thing. And we've got really good seats. And I needed to go to the toilet, so walk off to the toilet. I'm on my own. There's a prop used to play for sale, Martin Halsall. Mark, how you doing, mate? Like, good to see you. And he's like taking the piss, and I'm like, he's like, who you here with? And he's like, oh, the whole sale team just here on a night out. And I was like, oh, they'll be miles away. It's like, oh, you off to see it now? I was like, no, we're all sat here. And I looked to my right, and there's just like 30 the sale shark squad. I'm just there, like dressed as the fucking Undertaker, like just actually wanted to die. Like, all right, lads, type thing.
Tom Biggs, we are now live recording. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Mono y Mono. This is my own podcast, first one in 2024. I'm not.
Oh, nice.
I know,
Very
yeah.
nice.
Oh, what a way to kick it off. We've been trying to get this organized for quite a while. We keep
Yeah,
missing each
yeah.
other and being in
Been
different
away a
parts
little
of the
bit,
world.
and yeah.
Yeah, so where are you calling in from today?
So I am in Bangkok, Thailand right now.
Bangkok, Thailand. Fantastic. What time is it over there?
It is 8 p.m. So
8
6
p.m.
hours ahead of the UK at the moment.
Okay, not too bad. So what did you get up to today? Did you have a hard time coaching your
No,
coach?
no, not a hard day at all today. So we had training early this morning. Due to like the girls' commitments work-wise in university, we trained seven till 9, and then had a bit of gym work for the ones that were available afterwards. So not the most taxing of days today. I'd say the hardest thing at the moment is it reached 39 degrees today. So that was I love it. I'm not moaning about the heat. I really like it. So it's just when you're walking about and the sweat just comes down. But I like I say, I love it. I'm not complaining about it at all. Absolutely love it. So not a hard day work wise, and like I say, enjoy being out in the heat.
Amazing. And for people who don't know, I'm sure everyone knows, but for the people who don't know who you are and your background, you were originally, like myself, a professional rugby player. That's how we know each other. We don't actually know each other that well at all. We've crossed paths
Yeah.
your career. I've been following you for the last almost maybe a year, whatever, since you've kind of kicked off your social media. And you find out through social media that you have interest in the same kind of thing. Oh, he likes wrestling. Oh, he likes 1950s action movies. Oh, he likes brilliant. I need to talk to him. So, do you want to give us a little insight into yourself, your career, where you started off and how you ended up in Bangkok, Thailand today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from a place called Hull in the northeast of England, and growing up, rugby definitely wasn't my preferred sport. I always enjoyed football.
Right.
So I used to play football in junior school and Sunday league, but then when I was going into senior school, our school was rugby. So at that time, I was, wasn't sure if I was going to go to the senior school of our school, because I'd never played rugby and had no interest in playing rugby. So when I was what year did we start? Year 7, so I'd have been 11, was the first time I played rugby. So fortunate that we had a really good team at school. Some really good players. They all played for a local team called Hull Ionians. So they played heaps of rugby from a young age. So I'd play rugby on a Saturday for school and then football on a Sunday. And then when it got to after our GCSEs, I had a decision whether I was going to leave school and do like a YTS with Hull City at the time, or if I was going to stay on.
Mind me asking?
I couldn't even tell you what it stands for now.
Okay.
Youth training system. I'm gonna have a
Okay.
stab at.
That's
So
the football or the rugby team? The football.
football team.
All
Yeah. So
right.
that was
Okay. So
when
you had an option
that.
to potentially go professional
Yeah.
football. Wow.
Yeah. So that was when so Hull City at the time were in, what would it be, the old third division, I think it was. So I'd actually had a trial with Newcastle United as well and with Leeds. But it's when Mark Haitley was the manager, he actually called the house to see if I wanted to do it. And at that time, when I'd been doing the football trials, I'd not really enjoyed it, and wasn't really sure, if I was good enough to do it. There was a local lad called Gary Bradshaw, I remember his name, who was just like head and shoulders above everyone else. He actually ended up playing like a handful of games for Hull City when they're in the old school third division, but it was more the enjoyment factor. And I am small anyway, but when I was younger, I was very, very small. So it was a bit like, would I make it, and is it what I want to do? I'm not saying I was, had amazing prospects to stay on at school. I was, but anyway, made the decision, or probably my parents made the decision that now it's not right to drop out of school, and stayed on at school and did rugby. And I was a decent rugby player at school. Used to absolutely love playing rugby for school, like absolutely love it. It's by far my favorite. When I look back, my favorite ever time of playing rugby was at school. And we got to the quarterfinals of the Daily Mail Cup that year, my final year at school, which was a good achievement. And I wasn't in any academy setup or anything like that, but just used to love playing rugby for school. So went to Leeds Met University after school. It was sort of not too far from Hull, but far enough away, so still get back. And started playing for Leeds Tykes at the time. Again, how it worked was I wasn't in like the academy setup or anything like that. I wasn't, tracked or joined the, whatever. It was just they had an under-19s team at the time, and they were like, "Oh, you're in Leeds. Do you want to come and play a few games for?" So I was like, "Yeah." That was it. So I'd just play every weekend. Didn't have to do any training and stuff like that. And about a year and a bit after playing for them, I just said, "Oh, I'm not enjoying playing rugby." Like,
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, it was just like, like some great lads who still speak to now and stuff like that. But I just said, "Oh, look, I want to go, play 5-a-side football and 7-a-side football. It's more
So you
fun."
didn't see kind of like yourself progress, not even see it, but you didn't really say, right, I want to be a professional rugby player and I'll do whatever it takes to be a professional rugby player.
No,
No.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Like I say, I used to enjoy it. And then, played, a handful of games for the A team. It was back then. So I remember my first game was against Sale Sharks, and they had Apollo Perellini playing. I used to be a big rugby league fan, and
I
he's
was just
now
about
the
to say
coach.
that, yeah, like the North is rugby league, so you were union.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
always Union. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I remember my first A-League game for Leeds Tykes was against Apollo, and obviously he coaches now UAE, so see him quite often at the competitions and stuff like that. And always say, I remember my first game was, against you, which was awesome for me. Like, I loved it. But yeah, so played a handful of games for the A team, but then I was like, what am I getting out of doing this? Like, I think when you're younger, you don't really realize, but I sort of did. It's like all these teams are set up for a handful of players type thing. Like, and I'm just a backing dancer, so to speak. So stopped and went and played football, and just didn't do any rugby for maybe, must have not, maybe 6 months, something like that. Just completely stopped. And it was weird how it came about. So in the summer months, like at university, I would work at Pea Factory.
P factory.
Yeah, so back home. I'd work at a pea factory. It's like a
Oh,
summer
pea
job.
factory. I thought it was like a
Yeah.
franchise restaurant or
No,
something.
no, no.
Actually
An
picking
actual
peas.
pea.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So various jobs in the pea factory, which loads of my friends back home did. It was really good fun. It was 12-hour shifts, which was quite hard. So I'd do night shift, 6 p.m. till 6 a.m.
Oh.
But at the time, you were getting, after 40 hours, it was time and a half. So
Yeah.
it was good. It was good fun. And so yeah, I worked at the pea factory. And then when I was back in Leeds as well, studying, again, time off in the summer, I was working at the cinema as well.
What
So
were you studying in uni?
business studies.
Business studies. Okay, good
Yeah,
man.
business studies. So yeah, doing pea factory and cinema, and for whatever reason, they just had a handful of injuries. Like, first team players were out injured, so I think there's like Tim Stimpson, David Rees, Ian Balshaw, Phil Christophers, all had injuries. And then also they wanted to call up from the academy, but same with the academy. All the academy players they had were out injured. So they were like, it was Stuart Lancaster at the time rang me and said, "Oh, look, load of injuries. Do you want to come and train for a few weeks?" And I was like, "Well, I'm working, but I'll train when I can and all the rest of it." So I was fortunate that I'd missed the whole of pre-season more or less, and it was just like the weeks of the games starting. So I thought, yeah, I'm just going to go and play a few games pre-season, get some kit, and
Yeah.
be a bit of a laugh and all the rest of it. So played the pre-season games, went particularly well, and then they were like, "Oh, well, yeah, we want you to be part of the squad." But I registered, people won't believe this, I registered to play for Leeds, but I played 4 Premiership games without any contract.
Wow.
So I had no contract, no salary, nothing. All I had at the time was I was registered to play for Leeds.
And that was the deal, basically. Did they say that to you? And you didn't ask for money or a contract, just said, right, I'll go
No,
along.
I was just like, at the time, I was like, rugby's not, what I want to do. I'm just going to enjoy this and
Yeah.
crack on. So, yeah, it was a weird setup, but that's how I got into, playing professional rugby, so to speak. So it's quite random. And then, like I mentioned, me being small at the time, I remember we used to have to weigh in before games. Mate, I was tiny when I first started. I was like under 70 kilos, like my first few games. And
What
I was
age were
like,
you
I
at
don't
this
know what.
stage?
Sorry?
How old were you at this stage?
Oh, I was 19.
19, yeah. So a lot of
19, yeah.
maturing to do, really,
Yeah. Yeah, 19 for my first game. And I think I just turned 20, I think. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so I was under 70 kilos. And just remember, like, we'd weigh in, we had this big South African prop called Keys Lensing, who was 50 kilos heavier than me. You see it on the sheet, I just think, oh, Jesus Christ. But I think it helped me that I got on really well with the guys from the first team, the senior players and stuff like that, mainly because they thought the lads that had come through the academy were complete dickheads. So they were sort of on my side, so to speak, which really, really helped me. And in my first year, I was still full-time at university as well, and got on well with, it was Phil Davis at the time was our head coach, and our conditioner Scrapper, who unfortunately passed away, must be, maybe 8 years ago now, maybe 9 years ago. He unfortunately passed in a motorcycle accident. He was a real good guy. He was a former Marine and everything. I got on really well with those two, and John Collard as well was the backs coach, and I loved his humour. He was like very cutting, quite harsh, but I absolutely loved it. But because I was like so young, like really small, they like looked after me.
Yeah.
So I remember like we'd go in for video review, and if maybe things hadn't gone well on the weekend, and we're gonna go out there now and going to smash hell out of each other and blah blah. But thinking, Jesus Christ, not sure. Really fancy this. So at the end of the video, I'd go over and, oh, Phil, I'm really sorry, I've got to go to university.
Yeah.
And then I just go home and play PlayStation. Same with, I was still like, enjoyed the social nights out. So if I went out and maybe had a few too many, I'd ring up in the morning and be like, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you about lecture this morning, and then just no worries, go back to bed, because I was the only one who was a student, and
Yeah. And amateur technically as well, volunteer.
yeah. I mean, I got a contract sorted after 4 games, but
Yeah.
I was playing all right on weekends and stuff. So they were like, oh, yeah. And that first year we just stayed up. Like, we almost got relegated. We just stayed up, and we won the Powergen Cup as well in my first season. So that was the last time it was like the proper Powergen Cup, like not this, pardon my language, ridiculous shitty LV groups and stuff like that, which is a load of fucking nonsense. But it's the last ever like proper Powergen Cup, so that was pretty awesome. And got a contract after that and did a few years.
How did that go? The end of the first year, coming from working in a pea factory to being an amateur in a professional setup to getting your first contract. Then what's the end of year review saying, yeah, Tom, you did really well, we want to offer you a 2-year contract? Or did you make your decision then, yeah, I want to stay on and play professional rugby?
At the end of the first year, I can't really remember too much, to be honest. It was the year after was more difficult because we got relegated the following year.
Okay.
And I'd had a good season that year. I think, and I hadn't played for Saxons. I'd had a decent year, and I had some good offers to go to other clubs, but I was very, what's the right word? Very immature, I guess, at that age. Like, not very. I hadn't travelled much, not been away. Even though I was in Leeds, it's not far from home. I'd not been away, because I'd not come through like how the most academy lads had come through. Like, it was still quite a new experience for me. So like going to like the under-21s camps and stuff like that, I didn't really enjoy too much and things of that nature. So it was more the following year after we got relegated was a harder one for me, because I agreed to stay. And you still think now, like, oh, was that the right thing to do for me? Because everyone else left and stuff like that. But it was a really difficult time. So we got relegated, got promoted, then got relegated again. And even though I'd come to an agreement that I'd be able to leave if we got relegated again, it wasn't in my contract. And loads of other players left who were contracted. So that was a really, really tough time for me, because I was sort of
at this stage, or you're representing yourself?
I hadn't had an agent at this stage. I just done it myself. So that was a tough time, like not being able to leave, and felt quite harshly done to. But on the flip side of that year, I did the sevens for a year.
Okay.
So, and met some amazing, people on the sevens that are, still, sort of friends for life. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up playing like only 10 games that year or something like that, and was away for the sevens. It was also the World Cup year for sevens that year as well.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those where it's, the experience of doing sevens was awesome. I absolutely loved it. And I guess with the sevens as well, it's one thing I think, should I have, kept at that a little bit longer, because after Leeds, I went to Newcastle, and then I went to Bath. And when I left, I was meant to sign. Well, not meant to. I'd signed for Hull FC when I was leaving Bath.
Hull FC Rugby, Hull FC
Rugby League, yeah. Hull FC Rugby League,
yeah.
Rugby League, yeah. So I'd signed, like the deal.
Football. Hold on a second.
Yeah. The deal was done. I'd signed, been into the first few days of pre-season, had a squad number, all the kit, met all the lads. And how it works in rugby league is that in your first year, you're not counted towards the salary cap. So Hull were like, oh, if you're only going to come halfway through the season, then there's one of us registering you because, we'll use it on the cap the following year. And I was like, all right. And then they were sort of pushing me to come early. And the difference in wages, rugby union to rugby league, I don't know what it's like now, but it was big back then. And I just said, look, I can't move early because of, financially.
So it was bigger in league back then.
Bigger in union.
Bigger in union.
Yeah.
All right, you
Yeah.
completely flipped because I know it was massive in league in the 80s, wasn't it? And the 90s.
Yeah, bigger in union. So I just said,
Oh.
the hometown club wanted to do it, but yourself, careers are short. You don't know what's going to happen. So I just said, oh look, I can't, I can't do it unless we can come to some sort of agreement. Heard nothing, and then my dad rang me one morning when I was on the way to training, and just said, "Oh, have you seen the back of the Hull Daily Mail?" And I was like, "No," and it just said, "Hull terminate Big's contract."
What?
Yeah, so that's how I found out that this wasn't gonna happen. Which put me in because it was late on at the end of the season. So I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do then? So had an option to stay at Bath or go to a few of the Premiership clubs, and ended up going to Worcester again, which was awesome. Like, absolutely loved it there. The experience of getting the club back into the Premiership and the guys that I was with.
What year was that then, going to Worcester?
2014, I think it was.
Oh, okay. So this is after your time at Bath.
Yeah, went to Worcester.
Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to get my timeline. We haven't even gone into the Bath side of stuff as well. Yeah, just before you go on, it's funny you mentioned the salaries. I don't know what it is now. I'm in a group with a few of the Gloucester lads, and it comes up every now and again. But there was Rugby Inside Line. They shared the average pay in the Prem currently. All right, so
so I've seen these, and these
I'm kind of like, what?
some of these numbers.
Big numbers, like, fly half 217,761. Okay, so you mainly played wing, didn't you?
Yeah, always wing.
Always wing.
Always wing. Yeah.
So center wing, 99% of the time played in wing. So average winger is 127,969. Average. So I don't know where they're getting those numbers from. But it's interesting. Yeah, obviously and that's just the backs. What was the other thing they said? The average salary, marquee players. Yeah, I think there was one about the forwards. Yeah, but that's all that matters for us because we're wingers. But that was the average for wingers, and I'm kind of like, fucking hell, it's increasing, but who knows?
Well, a few friends are agents, and you hear you hear numbers, and you just think, especially some of these kids that are coming straight out of school and stuff like that. But then you're thinking, well, no wonder so many clubs are going, bankrupt if that's what you're doing.
Like it is crazy, and like that again, and like it's interesting hearing your kind of career path and how you came kind of through the back door, and where I was in Ireland as well. I was in the system, but in Ireland we have a two-tier kind of the school system, and then you have the clubs, which is basically the poor relation. So I came in that route as well. And I suppose the period of time, I think you're what age are you now?
Don't really want to say. I'm 39 now. I'm 40 in a couple of months.
You're older than me. Fuck, I thought you were younger than me. So yeah, I'm 37. So our generation basically was like kind of still early on in the professional era, and like I didn't have an agent.
Yeah.
For a long time, and they're ridiculously important, especially when you're young, to get you those kind of contracts. So you don't get kind of pushed into the wrong situation or get screwed on money, because unfortunately it is a business, and if they can get a good player for as low as they can and play on your kind of your naivety or just your love of the game or enjoyment of a situation.
But absolutely.
The young boys, it's a different situation. They're all very much aware of that now earlier on, and they know their worth, and I'm sure they can negotiate better. But as you said, like, where's the money coming from? who knows?
Yeah.
You know? But so just reversing a little bit there. So you went from Leeds to Newcastle.
Yeah, did a year at Newcastle.
How was that for you?
That was great. Loved Newcastle. The reason it was a year was because, like I mentioned, that time at Leeds was pretty difficult. Like, I was there and I didn't want to be there. I mean, I was away most of the time doing the sevens, which again was awesome, and came to the end of the season, and I, just had a really difficult year. I just didn't want to be there. Thought I'd been, like I say, treated pretty unfairly, and came to the end of the season, and I just said to I had an agent at this point. I just said, "Oh, look, I'm not. I think I'm gonna bin it."
Just retire from rugby.
Yeah. I was just like, because at that time as well, there was no option to do the sevens full time, and I'd love doing that. And I was just like, well, don't really know what I want to do. So spoke to a few clubs and was like, oh, not really sure. Like, don't really want to commit to like a 2-year contract. And just nothing else going on. I was just like, oh, I just don't really know. Yeah, I'd love playing and all the rest of it, but I remember I had so many difficult conversations with chairmans and chief executives and people at the club who I thought were sort of on my side, being saying some pretty bad stuff about me behind my back. And I was always really good for the club, like never any trouble or anything like that. Always do what I could for fans events and media stuff and whatever, never any problems. So when some of that stuff was happening, I was really like, and I was young at the time as well. I'd have been 20, 23, 24, something like that. So I was just like, I think I'm done. Like, and actually, again, random situation, I was on a stag do in Magaluf and faxed my contract signature through when I went to Newcastle. Yeah, so that was how I signed a contract for Newcastle.
And how did that come about? Like, did you say to your agent, like, yeah, mentally I just don't want to do this anymore, but keep looking for me? Or did he just say, listen, Tom?
I think he was looking out for me. My agent, I had a great relationship with my agent. He was great for me, and still can be now. Very like, fuck it, like that's it, gone, like type thing. So he was definitely looking out for me, and this opportunity came up, and really glad I took it because I loved my time at Newcastle. Again, met some great people there. The interesting one about Newcastle though is that their chairman at the time, Dave Thompson. Matt Thompson's back involved now as chairman, but I actually knew Dave and Matt really, really well from when I was younger.
Really?
So yeah, so me and my best friend from the ages of about, I don't know, 10. I'd always gone before, but we'd spend all our summers in Portugal.
Okay.
And my friend's parents knew Dave Thompson really well. So this is, back in the day. So we'd see Dave when we were like 10, 11 and hang around with Matt and stuff like that and be like, oh, we're gonna play for Newcastle one day, Dave, and stuff like that. And Dave's a pretty funny bloke. Could be like, fucking no chance with you. So just random how it comes about that I probably met him when I was like 10, 11 years old, and then sort of 15 years later he's my boss type thing. So quite random, and still speak to Matt Thompson a lot now. He's obviously chairman now, so just random how like those things come about.
Such a small community, rugby really, especially at the higher level of it. Cross paths and
mate, it is in Portugal now because, well, you'll know, Ireland train at the campus now, so it's like, and there's Browns as well, so it's just, you know, you're just there with rugby people everywhere,
Rugby nostalgia.
everywhere.
I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about rugby anymore. Leave me alone.
Yeah, they're all there. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird how that comes about.
So yeah, you had a good season in Newcastle, and then you get the offer to go to Bath. And
Yeah, and that came very early. Like, I'd only signed a year-long contract at Newcastle, and yeah, the Bath offer came very early, um, which was great. Like, don't get me
yeah,
wrong, it was amazing. And you know, glad I did it because, you know, had an awesome time. That's probably, you know, living wise as a place to live, Bath was
yeah,
awesome. Like, absolutely loved it. It took a lot of getting used to, which people probably don't understand. Like, I'm not saying, you know, as a party animal or anything like that, but when you'd lived in Leeds and Newcastle,
yeah,
big cities, even if you're not drinking, there's stuff going on. Like, there's, you know, places you can go in an evening, bars to watch sport in, and concerts going on, and loads of places to go out and eat and all the rest of it. Like, do loads of stuff in the evening. Then got down to Bath. It's like, oh, what's going on tonight? And like, well, fucking nothing. Like, and you're like, right. So
go
it
write some
took,
poetry.
yeah. So it took a little bit of like getting used to, because I'd never been one of these people that, you know, goes to people like, oh, I'll go to a cafe this afternoon. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, lads? Like,
Yeah.
and I love that now. But when I first got there, I was like, what we're doing tonight? So I spent the first maybe, I don't know, a month or so going over to Bristol quite a lot, because I was like, fucking, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
But this was also a tough time, because the year prior was when Bath had all that drugs scandal go on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was a difficult time, and that was a big thing when I signed, was that,
That's probably why it was so quiet the year you came in.
yeah,
No
that,
parties, lads.
yeah, I'd been on a Saxons tour with a few of the lads,
Right.
and this Saxons tour was basically a stag do. Like, we, mean, I only played in one game on the tour. Two or three of the lads played 0 games on the tour. I remember one day, we came down for breakfast, and I think it was Toby. I can't remember if it was breakfast or on the bus. And Toby Booth was one of the coaches, and he was like, "Lads, we found out training's 40 minutes away, so we've fucked it off." And that was like, all right, fair enough. And like I say, I wasn't playing in the final, but we won the tournament like real easy.
Churchill
Like,
Cup, was it? In Canada.
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard
yeah,
stories from the Irish lads that were on that tour.
right,
They said it was
yeah,
just mental.
yeah. So like, we played in our first game, we played USA, and it was pretty much the same USA team that had played England in the World Cup
Yeah,
however many years before, and we smoked them. And then, like I say, I wasn't playing, but I think the boys beat Ireland quite comfortably in the final. But it was, like I say, it was like a stag do. It was awesome. We were Chicago, Ottawa, and Toronto were the 3 cities
amazing.
we were in. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And obviously, the back of this, you know, stuff going on, I was out. Everyone was out,
Yeah.
like, all the time. And, you know, Bath were like, "Oh, look, we heard you drink a lot." And I was like, it's not really true at all. But, you know, same as anyone else. And also being out in Leeds a bit and all the rest of it. So I said, "Oh, look, if that's your concern," I was like, "I won't drink during the season." Not like, it wasn't like a
Yeah.
contract, you know, thing or anything like that, but I didn't. And that was like the progression, if you like, of what, I've not mentioned this yet. Well, I don't drink anymore, so I've been like 8 years sober now, and that was probably the starting point to it. That, and trying to get fit to play sevens, sort of cut my drinking down completely, to the point of I was maybe drinking, you know, 3 or 4 times a year, but then this, when I did, it was just wiping me out. And the last couple of times I did it, I was like, this is no good for me. I'm just gonna I'm going to quit. And everyone was like, oh, no, you'll quit for a bit. And everyone says that. But yeah, it's been 8 years now. I've not
Man, a lot of
done
discipline.
it.
It's interesting that, isn't it? You mentioned that, like, you go down to Bath and like, oh, we hear you're semi-alcoholic, and you're like, what are you talking about? How reputation is, it's so important, especially in professional sport, you know, on and off the field, and how it can affect
Yeah, I
your
mean,
life, you know?
I think the drinking aspect is a real difficult one in rugby and in certain aspects of life as well. Like you still get now, like when people find out you don't drink, some people have a real problem with it, like a real big issue with it, because
Yeah.
I've not done anything, anything, bad when I've been drunk. I'm not alcoholic. I just don't drink, and people got a real issue with it. Whereas if I was to come out and say, "Oh, I was an alcoholic," people are like, "Oh, good on you, like well done." But just because it's, "Oh no, I don't drink," it's like a massive, a lot of people take issue. Like I've been on, stag do's and
Yeah.
parties and stuff like that, and I've been with, messing about with people all day and all night, and then, do you want to drink? Like, oh no, I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink. Don't want to drink. So then you tell them, oh, mate, I haven't been drinking at all. I don't drink, and then their mood just changes, and you're like, mate, like you haven't even noticed that I'm not drinking, and then now there's like some problem.
Yeah, it's one of
But
those things. Yeah, definitely. People, uh, do they feel like they can't relax themselves because if you're not getting sloppy and messy at the same
yeah,
time, it kind of shows them up.
but like like, I think rugby definitely has a stigma to it in terms of that, lad culture, drinking, and I used to absolutely love
Yeah,
all of that,
yeah,
absolutely, and still do now. Like when I see people doing it, like love it. But I think if you're wanting to attract more people into the game, I don't really know, because people want to be involved in rugby because of that side of
yeah. I
it,
know. Yeah, yeah. It's
but trying to get new people involved, like the amount, I know a lot of people that don't like rugby, and they'd be like, "Oh, what? You're just gonna take your clothes off and windmill your cock around, like type thing." That's like what they think. It's like, well, yeah, that's valid what you're saying, because it does happen quite a lot. But yeah,
it is. It's an interesting one. Yeah, it's kind of it's pros and cons
like
there.
I don't think rugby can move away from that
No,
drinking aspect.
no, but it is, as you said, it's kind of the crack, because you go out and you put your body on the line, and it's kind of like the closest thing you can get to going to war. Do you know what I mean? In quote, oh look, there's some balloons as I say that. For a normal person, do you know what I mean? Because you're going out
Yeah,
there, you're getting into gladiatorial battle. Okay, all the analogies you want to use, but it is as close, and you can get seriously hurt in the process. And when you get through that, you're like, geez, that was great fun. We won, or we shed blood, sweat, and tears together, and let's kind of celebrate that, because I think it's a primal thing that is
yeah.
missing modern culture or modern society for men, and that's what they enjoy out of it. And uh, and it is a good way of getting to know people, because it does really reduce inhibitions for a lot of people, and they can relax a little bit more. But then there's people that go overboard, of course, and
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've seen in the news today,
I was
Billy Van
right that
Apollo.
we bring it up, that group
Right.
with the
So
story with tasers involved.
yeah,
Yeah,
so whatever. He's had a night out and he's got arrested.
yeah,
No one's ever going to know the truth of how bad it was or whatever. But whatever. He's been on a night out and he's got arrested. So you'll have a load of people that aren't rugby fans being like, "This is a disgrace. Like, how can you behave like that as an international? Blah blah blah." But then you'll have the rugby side, people like, "What an absolute legend! What a hero! This is amazing! Like, he's being tasered like Alan in The Hangover. He's our hero," type thing. So it's like you're gonna have both people,
yeah.
both sides to it. Like a load of people that just in massive support, of him. Like, I'm sure you've been around when stuff's happened.
Yeah.
Like whatever Saracens put out, that they'll be looking after him, being like, "Mate, just look after yourself," type thing. So it's one of those, like drinking in rugby is seen as like you're like, I don't know what it was like for you, but the lads that we had in our squad, or squads that I was a part of, if it was someone who'd be out drinking all the time, not really giving a toss about training, they were like, oh, fucking legend, this bloke, because he doesn't give a shit. That's what it was always in every squad. Someone's out drinking, not giving a shit, they're a fucking legend. If it's someone putting in the extras every day, trying the hardest, it'd be like, fucking loser. That's what it would always be. I don't know if this is the same for you.
Yeah, no, like, look, from the drinking perspective, like, I suppose my relationship with, which are like, you talk about stereotypes in rugby, there's a stereotype with Irish people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ireland, there is very much an alcohol culture in Ireland, which, as much as it has its positives, there's a lot of negatives goes with that as well. But I prefer the alcohol culture to the drug culture, which is getting much worse and bigger in the UK and Ireland, across the world, which is far more dangerous and destructive, I believe. Again, maybe I'm biased in saying that, but I kind of, when I was slightly very different to you in terms of starting rugby or my career, I made a decision when I was 12. I wanted to play professional rugby. So that's all I wanted to do. I played lots of different sports in Ireland. I like dipped my toe in football as well. Gaelic football we have over here as well. I played that at a very high standard, but that's amateur. There was no option. A bit like the sevens, there wasn't really an option to go any further than that. And I felt I was best sport I played was rugby. So I had that. So the drink, I didn't have my first drink till I was 16, you know, where all my mates would have started drinking at 12, 13, you know, on the sly, very early age for a lot of people to start drinking when you think of it. But I said, like, I can't drink. It's going to affect my sport. I'm an athlete, trying to be as professional as you can, not having the expertise of being a professional, not being in a professional setup, you know. And then when it came to the rugby, it was always kind of like that blowout pre-season. You don't drink for 8 weeks, and then you have your academy night out. Do you know what I mean? And that's where everyone went ballistic, like, you know. And then it's like, right, we got that out of the system, and then it would be kind of go like that. But then there was other people as well who just, they find themselves in environments. So they go to university and in Dublin, and then they start going to the nights out in the uni and get distracted by that. And that definitely, reputation wise, unless you were like a future British and Irish Lion, and they weren't too sure, that would affect you massively in terms of progress, climbing the ladder in the system. There were a few players, and from a genetic perspective, genetic freaks, they could go out on the piss and, you know, have no sleep and come in the next day and get PBs on weightlifting. I wasn't like that, you know. I said, when I drink, it affects me. I need sleep and I need rest. So I didn't want it to affect my rugby from that perspective as well. But like that, the guys, it would be seen as a badge of honor. So, geez, you can fucking put them away and come in and fucking fair play to him. You know, if he can do it, he can do it. You know, and that was kind of the attitude of the coaches as well. Like, if it doesn't affect his rugby, great, and it doesn't bring bad name to the club or whatever, great, you know. So it's an interesting one. But and again, I don't drink that much really anyway, only in social.
Yeah, well, I watch a lot of football and a lot of the football podcasts and, you know, everything else that goes with it. And it's interesting, Wayne Rooney the other week obviously had, you know, unbelievable career, and he said like how much he loved to drink, and he sort of had this, you know, regret that he didn't look after himself more while he was playing, and sort of has that sort of, oh, I wish I hadn't have, you know, drunk so much like I did, and, you know, looked after myself a little bit. And I think now with the opportunities that rugby can bring, that I think guys need to be more aware of, you know, the benefits now of, you know, looking after yourself. And, you know, and there's no guarantees in terms of an injury or anything like that, but it is so short. But likewise, you've also got, you know, a lot of people saying I didn't enjoy myself enough, because after a game I'd be focused on, right, I need to prepare for next week and go again for next week. So they missed that, you know, celebrating and stuff like that. So it's difficult. Like, there's, you know, two sides of it. And, you know, guys I played with that did like a drink, they'd be like, well, if I'm not drinking, I'm not going to be enjoying myself, and then I'm going to train shit and play shit. So
Yeah. It's getting that balance and people enjoying it, because it is so important. Because if you don't enjoy yourself in a situation, whether with drink or without drink, it affects, like you were mentioning there with your last season in Leeds. It was stuff off the park more than anything that was like, this is shit, I don't want to be here anymore. And I've had situations like that in clubs, two seasons in particular, and my last season in Gloucester was very much like that, and that was kind of why I mentally checked out, so I don't want to do this anymore down the line. But yeah, like some of the funniest stories and experiences you have are those, like in Gloucester we had the kangaroo courts. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, or the fancy dress nights out and lads getting loose and all that kind of stuff. And that's part of the culture, which is, I think it is. I know they've drinking in football and soccer and stuff like that, but it's different. That's more associated with kind of violence nearly, isn't it? Where the rugby is more like lads just doing crazy stuff
yeah,
that necessarily uh violent.
yeah,
Well, unless there's tasers involved. But
yeah, yeah,
so your time in Bath, going there, it was a culture shock. You were there for 4 seasons. Am I right in saying that? I have my notes here, 2010 to
yeah,
14, and
yeah. Four,
that's where we crossed paths for,
yeah,
I don't know, I think we only played once against each other, maybe that game. I was very much aware, you obviously we played in the same position, and touching on the wrestling, which we haven't even touched on yet, you had your gimmick, which is your golden locks, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Had the long hair.
which would
Um,
made you stand out without a doubt, even if people
yeah,
know your name, they knew of you because of your look,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Yeah. Had the long hair for, I think it was my whole. Well, actually, it's short when I first got to Bath, but big reason was, I don't know if you remember, had Michael Claessens and Nick Abendinen.
Yeah.
Um, all looked on video quite similar. Like they'll hate me saying them. They were also ginger like me. So from the videos, we all looked identical. So I was like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna grow." I'd had the long hair before, but I was like, "I'm gonna grow my hair." So yeah, grew my hair, and yeah,
And
that was
did you
it.
did you ever consider going down the route of professional wrestling? Like, where did that love come from? Well, we've opened that kind of worms now. We're going to go head first into it.
Well, yeah. So the the professional wrestling I loved from when I was young. So I remember my parents first got Sky TV, so I could watch WWF because it was on Sky Sports, back in the day.
Yeah.
How I first got into it, I've got no idea because it wasn't. I couldn't even tell you how I remembered, first watching it, but that was my whole childhood
Yeah.
watching, WWF, and my age is the same as WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 40 this was obviously a few weeks ago. I'm 40 this year, and obviously corresponds with my age. So I just think that the sort of age of me growing up was perfect for the, Hulk Hogan. I was 6 in 1990, so perfect age for that. And then obviously the Attitude Era, again, perfect age for that as well. So yeah, just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And then played in that. Remember when Saracens used to play out in Bermuda?
Yes.
In like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I met JBL
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
out there, which is, you know, awesome. Like absolutely, love that.
Here's one for you. It does funny you mention that 3 degrees of separation. So you may have seen on my Instagram, I just put a post with Greg McWilliams, who was actually the Irish women's coach for a period of time, and he was out in America in Yale. He was head of rugby in Yale, and I actually lived with him in Dublin for a season when I was playing with Blackrock, was the club we were with together. His time he was the US Eagles as well. I think he was backs coach, but obviously
Right.
PL is massive into rugby, and
Yeah, yeah. He was involved with New York.
yeah. And
Yeah.
him and Greg now are really good friends. And like he's a big fan of wrestling as well. And he knows I'm a big fan. And we did a podcast together during the week. He's just started a new podcast. Big shout out to Greg. I'll clip this and put it on social media. But he was saying like JBL, they text each other regularly, and he said the plan is.
I'm insanely jealous.
Oh,
I'm
I
insanely
know.
jealous. It's like I saw a video of him doing the clothesline from hell on Alex Good
Really?
off a ship.
Oh,
Yeah, it was awesome.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. So fingers
yeah,
crossed, we'll cross paths in the future, and you never know, might get my mono as a guest, who knows? But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? That connection, such a small world.
yeah,
What a character. He kind of, so with me with the wrestling, as I said, same era. I'm 87, born in 87, and like that, we didn't have Sky. I remember a period we only had 6 channels, in Ireland, and a lot of my friends would have had Sky in the school I was in, and they were big wrestling fans, Ultimate
yeah,
Hulk Hogan, all that period of time, and I knew of it, but I never really understood it. And then we go to birthday parties and they'd be doing the wrestling moves and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of the opinion, like, because I got told, you'd say, mention this to people or your parents, like, oh, that's fake, that's crap. You don't, this. So I was kind
yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
I never really understood it. And same in the Attitude Era. Went to secondary school, and everyone, we were in our class. All the guys would be doing was talking about Stone Cold versus The Rock, drawing Stone Cold and drawing The Rock in
Yeah.
class. And again, I don't get this thing. And then when I was about 17, 18, around that period of time. Oh no, it was around of 05, 06. I started watching it. And I was like, oh my God, this is fucking unbelievable. What have I
Yeah,
been on? And I then the
yeah.
rabbit hole. And the first WrestleMania I really was emotionally involved in was WrestleMania 23, because I'd watched it the full year, the build up.
Right. Okay.
It rated
Yeah,
RKO. You had Batista versus The Undertaker, and the streak. First time I heard of the streak, I was like, he's going to lose it. No, this Batista fella is an animal. He's going to destroy him, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, I was hooked, and I love because I love movies. Like, we'll touch on that in a second with you.
yeah,
I love storytelling. I love the business aspect of it, the marketing, and everything that goes with it.
yeah. Well, I don't know if you listen to the Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard podcast, but it is out of this world in terms of quality for a podcast. If it's in, like I say, an area that you're interested in, it's just unbelievable. His like detail talking about the merchandise, the deals that they did with stadiums, and there was a really good one I enjoyed. It must be, I think it was SummerSlam, maybe 95, 96, and they did a deal with Domino's Pizza, and it was just like, just this crazy sort of deal that, and how they've progressed through, how TV's changed and social media's changed, and how they've continued to grow, and what the values at and stuff like that is at now is just unbelievable.
Oh, like incredible. And like, even from myself, from a business perspective, and just unfortunately a lot of stuff has happened, come to light, the genius the genius next to madness of Vince McMahon. Like, when it came to business and predicting the future and where the marketplaces were going to go, he was a genius. Like, what the industry he built, like when it came to pay-per-view and centralization of wrestling and creating the brand, and
It's a bit like, the sort of celebrity route that he went down was obviously got Muhammad Ali involved in WrestleMania 1, and then to pull himself back out of the shit, so to speak, got Mike Tyson involved.
Yeah.
And that's what really sort of pulled them out of that sort of bad spell they're in 1997. So,
it's like, as a case study, if there's anyone listening to this and they're interested in business and marketing, WWF, now WWE, incredible, and what they're doing now as well at the moment, like, is
that Netflix deal as well is just
incredible, and it's so, they're always, and that's the thing, they're proactive as opposed to reactive. They're like, what's next? We're at the top of the mountain. They don't get comfortable. Like, we need to think of what's next, because people are catching up on us, and move forward, drive it forward. And it's incredible. And that's the side of it I really got engaged in as well. There's the front end, which is the show, it's the entertainment, it's the storytelling, it's the athleticism, all that. But the behind the scenes, and like you're talking Bruce Pritchard and all the different podcast, the first podcast I actually ever started listening to in 2012 was Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast,
Right.
initially from episode 1, like, But the storytelling, and what I liked about it as well, there was a lot of comparisons between my experience as a professional rugby player. I could have empathy with that, in terms of the physical side of it, the locker room, as they would call it, or the dressing room for us, the contracts side of it, making money, injuries, which I'm sure all about it as well.
Well, just how like those stories they must have of, like, say to like some people that don't really understand it, like say to them like, all right, say if we were like to friends I played with, it'd be like this. So we train together. Say I'm at Bath. We train together. After training, we get in a car, and the next day we're training in another city somewhere, and we can do whatever we want that day. At night, we just have to be in that city for training the next day, and we're just doing that every night of the year.
Every day.
It is like what they must have got up to must have been just ridiculous. Like you hear some of the stories in terms of how the get the hire cars and racing around. Some would be on planes, some would be spend a fortune staying like 5-star. Others would be like, nah, staying in a travel lodge. Like just like you could do whatever you wanted just as long as you're there on time the next day. Like how that operates type thing is unbelievable.
Like the drinking culture and the party culture, same thing applied for the wrestling and a lot of the stories. And again, pre-social media, pre-camera phone era for rugby, for wrestling. But it is, and the toll it took on their bodies and the issues that they encountered as well from the CTE, which obviously massive issues.
Yeah, I must say that is my one disappointment now, is that they're not massive and full of steroids.
Yeah.
It's my biggest disappointment about professional wrestling today, because obviously growing up, that's obviously what it's like a freak show circus. That's what most people were drawn to when you had.
There's one caveat though. It depends on where you are in the roster.
Right.
I'm not saying that some people at the top of the roster are on the gear or on the juice, but there's a
fair
difference. Like there's some like in incredible shape. Like you look at the Rock at WrestleMania 40, and he's in his late 40s, early 50s, or whatever it is.
50s,
amazing. And then Randy Orton as well, for best shape he's been in years. That kind of carry on, but you can understand it as well from that side of it, from the recovery. You're on the road 365 days a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm not condoning steroids in any walk of life, but they're not competing in a sport, so I don't really understand.
Yeah.
If they want, I guess it's their wellness policy. Fair enough, but they're not. It's not competitive.
I know it's not like UFC. Yeah, it's not like you're going to go in and kill someone. And actually, the stronger the better for a lot of them, so they can actually hold people above their heads. But it is, it's a brilliant thing. And my bucket list is, I have never been to a live event or
okay. I'd love to get to a WrestleMania. My friend's been a couple of times, and he's got the souvenir chairs.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow.
But it's funny you mentioned. So I did try and get a trial.
You did?
I tried a couple of years ago. So actually had a couple of emails back and forth with Jerry Briscoe.
Wow.
But the issue really was my age, because he said, "Oh, look, training you for 2-3 years, you're going to be 40 odd."
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's not really like, well, now, like say, it's not like you haven't got these freak humans like they used to be. There's normal sized people, doing it. So yeah, I would have loved to do it. I'd love to be involved in some capacity in WWF. I think it's awesome. Maybe be a manager, be a heel manager, be quite enjoyable. I think something like that.
You'd want to be a heel.
Yeah,
definitely.
Definitely. Definitely be a heel, but it's awesome.
The whole horror, some generic.
But yeah, so I remember we went to a live show in Manchester. So it was me, Rob Vickerman, Danny Kerr, and Max Lewis all played at Leeds together. I went as The Undertaker.
Oh, really?
Danny went as John Cena. Rob went as Bret Hart, and Max went as Big Boss Man. So I've got full black trench coat for The Undertaker, right? I've got hat, wig on, black eye makeup, whole fucking thing. And we got really good seats. And I needed to go to the toilet, so walk off to the toilet. I'm on my own. There's a prop used to play for sale, Martin Halsall. Mark, how you doing, mate? Like, good to see you. And he's like taking the piss, and I'm like, he's like, who are you here with? And he's like, oh, the whole sale team just here on a night out. And I was like, oh, they'll be miles away. It's like, oh, you off to see it now? I was like, no, we're all sat here. And I looked to my right, and there's just like 30 the sale sharks going on, just there, like dressed as the fucking Undertaker, like just actually wanted to die, like, all right, lads, type thing. So yeah, it's
You were
just
the
one of those
dead man,
situations. And then at school in rugby, we used to actually have a hardcore falls count anywhere title. So we'd be doing rugby training and then like count this pin, I'm going to pin him and stuff like that. So yeah, we always still love it at school. But
no, it's brilliant. It's actually one of the annoying things for me. So when I signed for Gloucester, first season I signed, which was great year. I really enjoyed that year.
Who was the coach that year when you signed for Gloucester?
I was actually signed by Brian Redpath, and he was gone within a week of me signing. He went to Sale, that whole
Okay.
And Nigel Davies came in then thereafter, which ended up, it didn't make any difference for me because I was kind of like, you talk about draft pick, I was like draft pick 100. I got signed from.
And was Hoggy there as well at the time?
Hoggy was there that season, yeah.
Yeah.
So I came in and listen, it was one of those best season of my career. It was fantastic. And but the preseason we came in and the boys, they had a few lads had the same age, and I can't remember who it was, but anyway, had organised them tickets to go to Raw and SmackDown.
Right.
Like, you're new in a squad and you don't want to be scourging lads.
Yeah.
There's only spare tickets on the go. If I had been the next season, he's like, get me a fucking ticket. I want to go to that.
Yeah. First few weeks, only speak when you're spoken to.
Yeah,
nothing else.
Exactly.
Just gotta be just quiet. It's absolutely so
biting my lip. But so on that season, as I said, that was where we did battle. We did our WrestleMania moments. Was King's Home for me, which was a huge one because growing up in Ireland, watching rugby and watching the Premiership, which was obviously a huge one, was either Bath or Gloucester were the two teams that I was a big fan of, and the West Country Derby, and then coming in my first season through the jigs and reels, ended up getting to start in that game. I think we were on the opposite I'm not sure if we were on the same opposite wings to one another, but it was funny. I was telling my parents today that I was doing the podcast with you, and I said, "That fucker!" I says, "Tell him I'm still angry at him for that try saving tackle." And it's kind of, I was like, the fucking PMO twice. It was like, it wasn't to this day. It was not double movement. The ref gave it momentum, but absolutely incredible work from yourself. And that's the thing. You're a fucking dog. You never gave up attitude, terrier, like, in terms of that. So no, it was great. Very happy memories from that. As I said, this is the first time we've spoken since when?
I mean, like playing at King's Home was it was awesome. I mean, you can imagine the sort of abuse I got with the long hair and stuff like that anyway. But like I can't imagine what it was like to play as the home team and stuff like that. It's just very, very different to any other rugby ground in the UK. Like just awesome. Just no other word. Like, when people say like what do you miss? It's that buzz of playing. Like, people think I'm a bit negative when I say I don't really miss like the day-to-day around the lads. I'm quite happy without that. Like that doesn't affect me. But yeah, that buzz of playing, you can't even really remember what it feels like, but you just know it was at the time it was awesome. So
yeah, like that definitely was very special. As I say, going out there and when you do the warm up and the shed starts singing and the atmosphere that's created, like from the shed, it's only a small stand, but it's a very special place. And I said the fans are just incredible. I said it before on other conversations and podcasts, but like to give you an insight on how much it means to those fans, one of the stewards died my last season, and I went to the funeral, and his family were wearing Gloucester jerseys at his funeral. And obviously it was over the coffin as well. And like, that's how much it means to those people. And very, very special. Very like I'm sure you're the same. There's a lot you would have wanted to achieve in your career, and there's lots of highs and lots of lows. But if you look back, and that's one of the things I'm very grateful for. I'm very lucky to have experienced that club in particular. Of all the places of an Irish guy where you start off and your life takes you decisions, you meet different people and different injuries and doors closed and other ones open, to actually end up there and have that experience. And as I said, like that game against Bath, in that experience, even to play in one West County country derby and actually get a win against Bath and all that sort of stuff was incredible. And then just obviously the other highs and lows of career and injury and physicality, and that's a good segue onto yourself. You are in absolutely incredible shape currently. Amazing shape. Like you should be in the WWE. And who did you say you're talking to? Dunn? Ryan Dunn, was it? What's his name in WWE?
Joe Briscoe.
Jerry Briscoe.
This was a long time ago now,
Yeah.
so I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately.
Well, all you have to say is DDP. He was 40 when Leeds Tykes.
Yeah.
I mean, but incredible shape. So obviously training is still a massive, like bodybuilding and that side of it is still a huge.
Definitely. I mean, it was always a big part to me when I was playing, because I wasn't the most skillful player, but I knew that if I was fit and I was strong, that could get by. As well, being quite slight, and that's an understatement. I knew that I had to have some strength. So while I did enjoy, doing weights anyway, it was important to me because I knew that I had to, giving up so much in weight, that I had to have the strength. And I like to think that I didn't really give away too much when I was playing. Obviously, if someone's heavy, then it's not an awful lot you can do, but it was a big part of my game, and I enjoy it, and I've just maintained doing it, really. And it's weird, not weird, so to speak. So when I finished and was like, I'm gonna do a load of training, do a load of weights, didn't really get too much support from. I hate the term rugby family because I think it's bullshit. I think people are rugby family if it's a name that they can grab onto and all the rest of it. Like, yeah, we're rugby family then, but if it's someone that we can't really get something from, fuck 'em type thing. But I think now, as those people have got a bit older, and they're maybe starting to realize now that actually, my health is important, not just like physical, but I think more mentally as well. Like, I think there's been more people, especially over the last year or so, being a lot more supportive than they were at the start.
In support of you in your coaching, is that it? In your
in my training, and stuff like that. So people are like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are you going to the gym for? What's the point of going to the gym? Like when I first,
really,
finished, and I'd be like, well, I enjoy it and want to do it. And I think the other thing is, because of my injuries at the time when I first finished, other than weights, there was nothing I could do. I was really looking forward to five-a-side football and tennis and stuff like that, even running. And whilst I can sort of hobble about a bit now, I can't run like you would and stuff like that.
So again, that's a good kind of segue from the Bath. we could do a whole podcast on each club you played for and the
Yeah.
experience there. But on the Worcester one, you ended up in Worcester. So this has come to the end of your playing career. What happened? Was it injury that finished it for you?
Yeah. So ruptured my deltoid ligament and chipped up my tib and fib.
Oh.
So got pushed over from behind, toes got caught in the ground and just like went down that way. And at the time I had a scan, and scan didn't really give a clear indication of what I'd done, and played a couple of games afterwards, and I was like, look, this isn't right. Like, my ankle was massive, and went back in, got some bone fragments out and stuff like that, but had a couple of goes at reattaching the ligament, and it was just no good. So it's still quite painful now. So I actually have to like sleep with my foot off the end of the bed because I can't have it like endorsing. So it causes quite a lot of pain and frustration now. But that's the big reason why, like, the main thing I do is weights. I still do a lot of other stuff like, paddleboarding, surfing, biking, but people just seem to think all I do is weights, which is true for the most part. But I do other stuff as well when it allows me to. But just trying to do, I would love to play, like I say, play football, but it's just not. It's not there. Like, I can run, but like I'm talking like 10 to 12 kilometers per hour type thing. Like, and not looking comfortable running either. Like hobbling away.
I'm sorry to hear that now, about the injury, and that's it, isn't it? Is I suppose the sacrifice you put your body through, and again, that's the comparison to the wrestling. They said the damage that your body goes through for what you love or your passion, and the impact it can have moving into the future. But were you big into bodybuilding as well? Were you a fan of that, like the Arnie era, or
Yeah, massive. Yeah, used to love all that. Again, I think what it comes from is what I used to watch on TV. My uncle was into it a little bit, I remember that. But like the cartoons I used to watch were Thundercats,
right? Of course.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with Jacked, and He-Man. So like, I used to watch that and wrestling growing up. That's all I'd watch. So it's like, well, no fucking wonder that I want to, lift weights and stuff like that. And when I was, how old would I have been? I think I'd been about 10 years old and went to Disney on a family holiday. And, back then, there was no paedophiles apparently when you were like, back then. It wasn't known. So you could go off into hotels and wander about and be safe. Like, parents, wouldn't worry about you. So I'm in the hotel, go off, you'll be fine. Like, got no phone, no one knows where you are, but whatever. Back then, I'm sure it was the same for you.
World. It was a better world. Well, we think anyway, on the surface level anyway,
Yeah, so I was the classic little ginger, cheeky type kid. So anyway, I was like walking around, and I went upstairs back to the rooms, like, Dad, you got to come downstairs. Arnold Schwarzaneggar's in the gym downstairs. And Dad was like, Tom, for fuck's sake, like, what are you going on about? I was like, no, that Arnold Schwarzaneggar's in the gym downstairs. Promise. So Dad's like, oh look, I'm not in the mood. Just fucking leave me alone. I was like, Dad, come downstairs. Anyway, came downstairs, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the gym at the hotel. So what it was the opening of Planet Hollywood.
Right. Yeah.
So in the hotel, I met Arnie, Sylvester Stallone, and Demi Moore.
Wow.
And this is like when I was 10. There's no like phones for like pictures or anything like that.
What's this, 1994?
That'd have been like 94, 95, that type of. I think I was like 11 or 12. So yeah. And fortunately as well, in later, very recent years, I've met Arnie at Gold's Gym in LA on Venice Beach, and that was just like so good. Like,
yeah.
And like, no, but when I first met him was so I was just on a machine at Gold's and just looked to my left, and he's just on the machine like
Yeah.
next to me, and no one's bothering him or
Yeah.
anything. And I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna put my head down and like pretend I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh hey, how you doing? Where are you from? And just like chatting and like, what you into? Blah blah blah. I'm just like, yeah. And no one's bothering. He's just walking around, blah blah blah. Anyway, as I'm leaving, he's whatever assistant brings his bike out, and I'm like, oh, do you mind if I take a picture? He's like, yeah, no worries, blah blah, fine, and like just goes off on his way. And the stuff I'm like, how come like does he come in here without security? It's like he's in there every day. No one bothers him. Like he just cracks on with it. Like it's like normal for him to be here. So it's like the best day ever, literally meeting Arnie. So yeah. I say watching again Arnie films, the Rocky films were sort of our age group as well, I guess, a little bit.
Like for me, they weren't necessarily, as I said, we're only a few years in the difference. Like I love like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, you know, unbelievable.
What are your favorite ones? Give me top 3 Arnie films.
Well, my favorite Arnie movie is probably the one I go to as my favorite movie if I had to choose, which is a very difficult one to answer, is Predator.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the right answer.
yeah. It's probably his best acting performance out of every movie. Ironic, you know, this is the crazy thing about it. You know? It's just perfect for that type of movie. It is perfect, you know. And if you want to get in the mood to go to the gym and pump some iron, sit down and watch Predator. You know, soundtrack, fucking cast, you know. And you think about it as well. Like you often see this. You know, we won't go down to the whole social and political thing at the moment, but this word diversity is rammed down your throat all the time, and forced diversity a lot of the time, kind of like forced fun.
That cast is perfect. Yeah,
you know, force it. Predator. You look at the rescue team. Yeah, you have black, Mexican, white, Native American, woman.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's just across the board. It ticks every single box. So that was like that's my number one Arnie one. I suppose, you know, like the Terminator movies are just the first two. I wouldn't go into the ones thereafter. You know, they kind of dropped the ball with those ones. Outside that, then as well, you've got the Total Recalls and those type of.
It doesn't really show him in his like muscular form, but I really like True Lies.
Amazing, great.
And I think Last Action Hero is really underrated.
I could not agree more. Like you go back and watch it, it's so good. Like Charles Dance and that, you know, as the bag, unbelievable. You know, such a great great movie. But yeah, no, that is like Arnie is great. Like the bodybuilding. I remember my brother really when he got into training and bodybuilding, I bought him the encyclopedia for his birthday. I think
yes,
20th.
That's great.
And he got
I think
massive.
I think bodybuilding, or the term bodybuilding, gets a really bad rep, especially in the UK, for what it is. I get that the end result of, you know, being really, really lean and, you know, being in spray tan is a bit extreme for a lot of people, but all it is eating healthier and lifting weights. But the term bodybuilding. So if someone were, oh yeah, go to the gym, you know, 3 times a week, lift some weights and do a bit of cardio. It's like, also like bodybuilding training. They'd be like, what are you talking about? Like very different, like bodybuilding to competitive bodybuilding. And now people just do my head in talking about hybrid training and all this fucking nonsense. But it's like the same in sport. Like you do bodybuilding in sport, like no, we do hypertrophy. It's like is that not the same fucking thing? Like just different terminology for it. Like we do loads of sessions. Well, what's the 3 sets of bench, 8 reps, like so it's like bodybuilding, isn't it? Hypertrophy, and you're like fucking 42. And people got this thing that, it has to be like strength only, like 3 reps. If you do anything more than 3 reps, then you're killing yourself and all the rest of it. So I do think there's a big crossover in terms of it's just so frowned upon. People, like I say, use to chuck the term in. If I could do a perfect bodybuilding session, people wouldn't want to do it. But then if you just put hypertrophy at the top, it'd be like, fucking brilliant. This program that I've been doing for like my sport and stuff like that, it's like
I know,
ridiculous.
it's the stigma of the word and being associated. Again, obviously, bodybuilding people associate the extreme of Mr. Olympias and heavy substance abuse, steroids, and they just don't want to be associated with that. But the training, right? Take out the drugs. Like the training is just fantastic. For your physique, but mental health, everything that goes with it. Relationship building, if you're a group of guys and you're training together in the gym, it's brilliant. Again, that's the thing from the rugby, I suppose, that aspect, that social element. Yeah,
I think what you mentioned there, that's what I like about it, is the discipline side of it, like the commitment and discipline. Being like a non-drinker, I like the routine of doing it. It's like part of, just, again, I hate how people say it, but it's just part of my life. Like, it's just I'll go to the gym. I don't think about it. It's just, that's part of most days. Yeah, it's just part of most days.
And on that, we didn't, again, there's so many different things we're covering here, but your mindset. So, like, how would you describe yourself, like, from the rugby? Are you a very determined person? Do you set goals for yourself? Do you just go with the flow? How would you kind of look at yourself?
I think I just go with the flow. I'm not really one for setting goals. I haven't got what am I going to do? I'd never at the start of this year wrote down like a list of things I wanted to achieve or anything like that. Maybe it would be a good thing for me to do. I think when I first came out of rugby and was a bit uncertain of what I wanted to do, it probably would have been a good time then, because I always thought I want to do strength and conditioning and personal training and stuff like that. But I'm really enjoying the rugby coaching. It's something at the time as a player I thought I wouldn't enjoy, because I used to hate training. So not hate training, that's a bit harsh, but never really, and obviously did a little bits and pieces, local clubs, schools, stuff like that, and got into it and did a bit, and thought, could I be a full-time coach? But then I've been doing it for a while now, actually really, really enjoy it. But I think, as a goal setter, not really one for a goal setter. And that's probably why I actually really enjoyed COVID times. I'd done 2 years in Singapore by this, or maybe a bit longer, and sort of came back and felt a bit like, oh, everyone's doing all this stuff and progressing, like, friends that hadn't been in sport in their line of work, whether it be property or banking or finance, are steadily moving up, and then you're just like pushed back to start somewhere else. So during COVID, enjoyed it for a handful. First of all, I was back home with my family and had spent a long time away from them. Spent a large amount of time out in Portugal as well. But because no one was progressing during that time, I felt like more comfortable for a bit, because I was like, I can just relax. Like, no one's really doing anything at the moment. I mean, I know a lot of people did different stuff, but it was like, sort of felt like the pressure was off a bit, and there was, no need to have goals and stuff like that at the time, because I had no idea how long that was going to go on for. But like the jobs in terms of, with working with Thailand, working with China before that, they were just jobs that came about. Like, they weren't, I didn't necessarily like apply for them like you would a normal job.
You were the coach of was it the senior rugby team for China or the sevens?
So I was doing the strength and conditioning for the China sevens team.
Wow. Like a world superpower, basically. You were at that.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah.
And how was your Chinese?
You know what? It was awesome and crazy at the same time. So that was with Ollie Phillips and Dan Norton. They were the coaches. I was doing the S&C. Was Ollie at Gloucester when you were there, or you?
No, I
No,
don't think so. No,
no.
you're gone. Yeah.
So Ollie Ollie got in touch. No, I got in touch with Ollie over. It was over a fitness thing because he mentioned that he wanted to lose a bit of weight. And I was meant to go back to Singapore to work for a company, and this company also did like meal prep style food. Really good. I'd used them like a couple of times. Really good, like really tasty meals, and it just made it everything easy. Like you'd get, what would it be? 3 meals a day. Yeah. So 15 meals dropped off at your house on a Monday morning. There's your meals Monday to Friday. Sort yourself out on the weekend. All the macros, calories done for you. Made it so easy to control. So nice. So I was like, oh mate, like, heard you want to lose a bit of weight. Like, I've got this guy's going to get in touch with you. He'll sponsor you to do it. Be a great transformation, all the rest, blah blah. And he's like, oh, glad you called. Would you be interested in doing the S&C for China? And I was like, oh, I don't know. He was like, oh, I'm going to be the head coach, and you're good to have you on board as the S&C. If you are interested, need to speak to this woman, send all your CV through and your details. She'll have a chat with you and see if you're viable to do it. So I was like, yeah, right. So I spoke to this woman, sent it all off, and then didn't really hear anything for maybe a month or two. And then she just rang and said, yeah, I want you to start then, like out the blue. So this was COVID was still happening in China, and the war had just started between Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
And obviously at the time, there was talk that China were going to get involved in this.
Yeah.
So they wanted us to go out to China. At this time, you had to do 3 weeks in quarantine in a hotel in China.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And they were like, all right, okay. And Ollie he was like, not going to do it. Anyway, another month later, oh, we're going to come to the UK and train in the UK for 3 months. So they came to the UK, trained in the UK for 3 months. Then we went over to China, only had to do 10 days quarantine in the hotel. It was actually, again, that was actually really nice. Like the hotel was good. Food wasn't the best, but we could order room service.
Yeah.
And the room service did this amazing burger. And then difficult because COVID was still going on in China, but all the tournaments we were meant to go and watch and trials all got cancelled because of COVID. So we were basically on a 3-month holiday in China, going to like Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, all these other places, and like they proper looked after us. It was good, but there was a lot of challenges working for China and how they control things.
Yeah.
But they have the most insane facilities you've ever seen in your life. But like we'd go to these places and it'd be like, how come you're not using this? And they're like, oh, it was for the whatever Winter Olympics base in 1990, whatever. And we just left it and built another one over the road type thing. You just be like, wow. Like the money they have is just insane. And a lot of the athletes are treated like professional athletes, even though there's no sort of money being generated. It's just insane some of the lives that they lead. And if we obviously met some of like their gold medalists. Wow, they are kings and queens of being out there. And what they get given is insane.
What was it like communicating? Did you have a full-time translator with you, or how did that work?
Yeah. We had 2 translators. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know any Chinese.
Oh, Shay.
I don't know any Thai either. So
Ni hao. That's my Chinese. So, and you're in Thailand now. You went from China. You were back home for a while, and then you went to Thailand. Is that right?
Yeah. So again, that came about. So I met the Thailand, coaches and presidents when I was with China, and applied for the job. They got in touch and would you be interested in applying for the job? I knew the old coach Lottie Rackenbuller because he used to play against him on the 7 circuit. And it came about very, very quickly. They were like, yeah, can you start in? I think when I first spoke to them, I was out there maybe 3 weeks later from like them saying, yeah, can you get out? So yeah, 3 weeks later. So I got out here at the end of September last year.
Wow. And that's when we were kind of around that time started communicating to try and
Yeah,
put
so I was quite
podcasts together.
settled, like getting back into like my online training, looking at setting up a gym, stuff like that. And then this, very unique, if you like, opportunity. Like Thailand's one of my favorite countries in the world. Traveled there a few times before I moved out here. And yeah, really unique opportunity, and one that I thought that I needed to take. And it's just been an amazing experience. Again, crazy experience, but an amazing experience. Been fortunate enough, to travel to, Japan, Uruguay, Dubai with the team. Had the Asian series in Bangkok. Yeah, it's just one of those things that you sometimes, because I'm obviously doing it every day, you don't think about it. But then when you take a step back and think, wow, I'm living in Bangkok, I'm coaching a national team in, like I say, one of my favorite countries in the world. I'm, on weekends going down, Koh Samui and Phuket and stuff like that. It's can be a bit surreal.
The going with the flow has served you well.
Yeah, yeah. And that is definitely the way Thailand operates, going with the flow. So you find out things on a, day-to-day basis. There's not much sort of planning in place, or when you do make a plan, they very rarely stay, as they are, type thing. So going with the flow is definitely the best way to be here.
Yeah, brilliant. And just before we wrap up, Tom, that's a good kind of full circle of the story to date. Just touching on your online presence in your business, and something that I got straight away. We touched on the movies and the wrestling and the marketing aspect and your brand and building yourself. Do you want to give us a quick insight into that? And are you still pushing that as well?
So at the moment, I'm not, just because I haven't got time to do it. I would love to, because I was really pleased with the website that the design team made for me. Also, I gave them an idea of what I wanted, and it was only an idea. I can't, I sent them a few screen grabs and stuff like that, but what they came up with, I love. So it's very sort of retro computer games, 80s, retro feel. And just for me, I remember, like, when I was younger, when I grew up, I wanted to be, like Arnold Schwarzaneggar, like the superhero. And I think every boy and girl did, of our age group. And I think as people have progressed, they sort of shy away from it, and bit like, they sort of, in the back of their minds, they do want to do that, but they're a bit like, they don't want to, commit to doing it. So they'll sort of belittle it a little bit. And I just think training now is very, very serious, and people forget the fun part to training, and the rewards you get from being committed to training.
Yeah.
And I just want, what I want is just people to enjoy it and be like, it doesn't have to be that, that serious. And it's not about, like, you have to do, incline dumbbell bench. You have to do that. Like, if the gym's busy, just do that exercise as well. It's not going to make too much of a difference. Like, don't worry about it, type thing. I just want it to be enjoyable, and for people, again, I'm 40 in a few months, of our generation, to be like, yeah, when I was younger, I did used to love, like, wrestling. I did used to love, like, the Arnie films, and I did want to be fit and healthy and stuff like that. And like I say, I think now, as friends and stuff have got a bit older, and they've got sort of out of that boozing sort of phase and partying phase, and they're a bit like, oh, would like to I think, to be fair, from the people I have, a lot of it is to feel like, even if they couldn't see what they look like in the mirror, it's more like they're like, I feel great from just
Yeah.
having a bit of a routine, being back in the gym and stuff like that. So that was what I like I say, I will get back into it at some point, I'm sure. I don't know when, like, down the road that might be. but my whole thing that I enjoy is, you know, films and television and computer games and nostalgia and stuff like that. So that is what, you know, what I enjoy. And I guess people always say like, oh, I'm different or whatever, but I do feel a little bit different to most people sometimes, like in terms of what I enjoy and what I like. And I think there's still a little bit of me does care what I'd love to say I don't care what people think, but there is a little bit of me that cares what people think, but certainly not as much now as what I used to be like. Just used to be like, this is me, this is what I enjoy. Like I can't, you know, can't help that. It's like sometimes like with how I act with the girls in Thailand, like the presidents and stuff are a bit like the sarcasm, they don't quite like can be quite sarcastic. So it's like, but this is what I'm like, so I'm not gonna change.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just what I enjoy. So that was the branding idea on that, was like say the retro thing of I love films and cartoons and nostalgia, and that's the route that I wanted to go down. Like, yeah, just
Well,
that was
it
it.
certainly caught my attention, and I'm a fan of it, and I think it's brilliant what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
If someone wants to follow you or see your website, what's your username on Instagram?
I think it's really, really original. Tom Biggs Training. And that was another thing. So everyone. So the company that did my website were like, "Do you not want to call it coaching?" But I hate the term coaching.
Yeah.
Again, from being coached as a player, so that's why I called it training. And even though when people ask me now, "What do you do?" I'm a rugby coach.
Yeah.
But it's the term coach. I don't know why I don't like it. I just never
Yeah.
like the word coach. Like coaching, it's like training. So yeah, I just preferred training. But that was like a big like, oh, we'll call it Tom Biggs Coaching, surely, or your badge will be Tom Biggs Coaching. Like, no, I wanted to say training.
Yeah.
But
You stuck to that.
yeah.
TBTNWO. So it's
Yeah, that bad. My initials are a disease, TB. So yeah, it's
yeah.
not ideal, but there you go.
So no, that's brilliant. Listen, it's absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thanks again for making the time. Hopefully we'll get to meet.
Oh no, thanks very much for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it was great, and hopefully we'll get a session in the gym. You know, like Louis
Oh
and
man, I'd love to. Yeah,
Arnie.
we'll get a montage done.
Yeah,
Definitely.
100%. So listen, absolute pleasure, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Take it easy.